All right, welcome to the Leadership Mastermind podcast, everyone. I am your host, Mitch Peak, and this is my co-host, Laura Brandeo. Hello, Laura.
Hello, Mitch. Wow, I am so excited for our guest today. I can remember the very first time I met Mike Kortas. He was on the panel that I was moderating, and he declared to the audience that he was building the number one broker in the entire country. And I believed at that moment that that was going to happen, and that was in 2019. So let me introduce you all to Mike Kortas, the CEO of NEXA Mortgage. Mike has over 20 years of mortgage experience and has served in multiple roles. And NEXA Mortgage was actually founded in 17, where he is the co-founder, and the single goal of becoming the best place for all independent loan officers to work. Under Mike's leadership, the company has grown to be number 2 mortgage broker in the country, and it's on pace to become the largest company serving independent loan officers. Well, on the Leadership Mastermind podcast, we want to provide our audience with insights and perspectives from our industry experts so they can learn, grow, and be inspired to be a leader to their clients and their teams. All right, Mitch, let's kick it off.
All right. Hello, Mike. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, man.
All right, man. Well, we'll jump right into this. And the big question is, what are your 3 key pillars to leadership?
So when you talk about leadership, you can't. I don't think you can leave off by leading by example as number one, right? And the examples that I like to lead by are always going to include that really hardcore grind, that the aggressiveness, goal setting, right? Obtaining those goals, setting higher goals, just leading by example. And even though my role may change, as the CEO of NEXA, I look at myself, we're loan officers at heart, right? And that's what we really are. So people say, you're the CEO of this company that grew so big. And that doesn't get my blood pumping. It's the loan officers that we work with that gets my blood pumping, and leading them by example, getting on sales calls with them and getting up at 3, 4 in the morning and grinding it out with them. Right. So leading by example is, to me, always been my number one attribute. But in a leadership role, I've also learned that listening and fairness, listening to everybody is important. It's not just my way anymore. Right. We run NEXA like a democracy, right? Our folks get their opinion, they get a listen, they actually vote on decisions. I don't make all the decisions as the company. I want their insight, their opinions on everything, and then they vote, and whatever they do is what we do. They tell me what to do for them, right? Is kind of how we went with this. They don't work for me, I work for them anymore. Right? They are my client, is our team. So, and lastly, I'm going to go, communication. And with us, communication means absolute relentless transparency, right? We live by transparency, and it's one reason that we love being brokers and why we'll always stay a pure broker, because not a single one of our loan officers will ever question exactly how much money was made on a transaction. There's no additional hidden margin in it, right? If you stay that route, and a lot of people say that we should go the correspondent route, but I believe that will cause our folks to trust me a little bit less, because they really don't know if I'm padding at that point. And so the transparency that we have, we share every last one of our invoices with them, so they know that I'm not nickel and diming them anywhere. It's just a relentless transparency that we are really committed to in that communication that we deliver. That's really important to us.
I love that. And Mike, I think it all starts, to sum up some of what you just said, is you're a servant leader. It sounds to me that, and I think we all agree, leadership is not a job title. Leadership is not CEO or owner or co-founder or any of those things, right? Leadership is a role that you take on because you care so much for the people you are serving, whether it's your team, whether it's your clients, whatever you're serving, you're being that servant. And it sounds to me like that's why you did this. So please, I want to understand that philosophy. Why was it that you said, not only am I going to be an independent mortgage broker, I'm going to be the biggest. I'm going to take this on. Where did that come from? I actually want to understand the backstory to that.
I mean, so look, I was a top producing loan officer at a regional mortgage banker at one point, and I mean, I knew how much they were making off me. They were making far more than I was ever making, multiples more than I was ever making off me, right? I knew what the margins really were at the rates that were there, because I've been in the industry long enough and I had access to other raw rate sheets, things like that. And then I realized that, there's so many little things that we ask for, but at the end of the day, it was always just the top couple people that really had the long-term effect. And NEXA is about every one of our loan officers is really, if they're a partner into our organization. And I looked, right? I was looking for another place. I said, there's got to be a better way for loan officers to do this, right? I said, there's got to be a better platform out there. And I looked for it, and I made a couple of mistakes on my journey, as far as a couple different places, and they weren't the right fit for what I was looking for. Just so many things that didn't always just say everything revolves around the loan officer. So I just got to a point where we were just like, just create our own with Matt Grella, my partner, right? We just said, there's going to be a better way to do this, and let's create that thing that we couldn't find out there. Now, perhaps I just didn't find it. I didn't uncover the right rock. Who knows? But we said, let's just create this thing and let's revolve everything around the loan officer. And it was a different concept because a lot of companies revolve around operations, right? The sales teams have to do it the way the operations needed to be done. We have a different concept. We insist that all operations must revolve around the way the loan officers want it done. That's a big difference with us. And then we just kept adding, what we call our 7 pillars of non-negotiables that we won't be beaten on for our loan officers. And we just keep adding to those things and making them better along the way. But it really started as a loan officer, there's got to be this platform that really just thinks about me.
Wow.
And I couldn't find it, so we said let's create it then. And wherever there's something not around, right? If there's not a gas station within 20 miles, create a gas station, right? Right. So that's the route we went, and it's been a great fun ride, just over 3 years. And as far as that goal that you mentioned, Laura, I'm about eight loan officers away from that goal. Right?
I was trying to remember the number of that very first time when we were on that stage. I was trying to remember what the number was, because I remember I had interviewed you pre-call, and then by the time we went up on stage, the number changed. I remember you were like, hey, Laura, that number just went up by 20 or something. It
changes every day. I used to track it every single morning. Now I track it every single Monday, just for time's sake. But the number was around 140 when we were on that stage. And I said, by the end of the year, I'll be at 250.
That's right.
And we hit that 250. Now I'm at 846, 47 as of this last Monday.
Wow.
So
that's incredible.
And our goal was to become, and we actually went through some pretty interesting changes this year. I could easily be at 11 or 1,200 loan officers right now. But what we did is we insisted on getting to producing loan officer status.
Right.
Not a lot of loan officers that are not actually producing. So in July, we stopped adding to the number, and every time we hired somebody, we said, look, another non-producer was there, and we just said, you guys. So for 3 months, we didn't actually grow. But after we got rid of the non-producers, and now we're back on our growth. So
that's awesome. Now I'll ask you this: one of the most unique things that I find about NEXA is, one of your key pillars is communication. So, I really like the concept and the idea that you have with the Zoom. I think you're kind of a little bit ahead of the pandemic with that. And tell us a little bit about why you created that and why you have that for everyone in the organization.
So this happened in late 2018, right? We were using weekly meetings, constant updates to our loan officers, voting their opinions, those kind of things. But we made a decision that on January 1st, 2019, our entire corporate office, everyone in our support teams, from payroll to accounting to marketing compliance, right? Everybody had to be on live video all day long because we support our loan officers at a national level from one location. We're not like a lot of the retail shops that have all these brick and mortar locations. Of course, those comes with expense. We had to support our folks in a way that nobody that could support everybody as good as any company out there, if not better. We'll argue better, but in a way that was cost effective, because we didn't have brick and mortars across the country, and you can't necessarily do that in a broker environment. It's difficult. The margins just aren't big enough, right? So, and that's what and we've been using Zoom for a long time. And so I just we upgraded our Zoom package and went for the big boy package and then just made everybody was a little bit freaked out. They're like, you want me to be on video all day long? I'm like, look, for those of you who don't like video, the only person who's critiquing you on video is you, right?
Right.
The others aren't critiquing you. I mean, even the three of us here sitting, we're looking at ourselves more of the time because, like, do I look all right? But usually, until you get really used to video, then you go the other route. But the only people, so I says, get over that, right? And it didn't take but a few days. So when the COVID pandemic hit, we were like, what's your guys' problem? We're already doing this, right? We were already knee deep into this thing, and we were over a year into this already. So it really helped us. Then all of a sudden you see all these locations shutting their offices down, loan officers now. It helped us grow as well on top of it. But it's really the key piece to helping us keep our loan officers too, because if getting a loan officer is one thing, you can do that off great rates or a sexy compensation plan, but keeping them is another thing, right? And you've got to have support to keep them. So we heard a lot at the beginning of this game that, whoever wins the support game is going to win the broker game, and that's what we hung our hat on. And so we went really strong on the support, but they're online. We're online Zoom all day long, right?
And that goes for access to your broker's clients as well, right?
Well, it goes for everything. I mean, Laura, you got a rep in there all day long for us yourself, right? The fact that our loan officers can be in there and talk to our AEs all day long. There's no hiding behind a voicemail or a text message or an email. They're just simply there. We log in, we say, hey, I want to talk to, our AFR rep, right? Or I want to talk to one of our other reps. But it's not just them, it's vendors. We have vendors in there, right? Credit repair companies, title companies, insurance companies, for the loan officers that have processing companies, but our customers, right? I had a meeting this afternoon with a customer that has a complaint against one of our loan officers, right? So our customers don't have to drive down to an office or go find somebody or try to they can just click a button, log in, and get the help that they need as well. Realtors, our loan officers do webinars inside of our platform since we've already got them, and we've ended up having to grow our platform base because we have, I think we manage roughly 60 different breakout rooms.
Wow.
That are daily permanent breakout rooms now. So
yeah, I think the key there is you're taking communication to a whole new level that other companies are going to have to start being able to match, because that kind of attention for anyone involved with NEXA is communication times 10.
Yeah, and look at what Mike said. Look what Mike said. You were doing this before the pandemic, but you were already prepared. You already had the system in place. You already had the support and the dedication there, where everyone else was scrambling to figure out how to work and operate like this. So, Mike, I mean, you said to yourself, you went through this growth spurt. Then you said, wait a minute, let's evaluate this in July, and let's make a decision of taking a look at some people that might not be producing. So I'm sure that during this journey of the last few years, you've learned quite a few lessons. What are some of the lessons that you learned that you were like, okay, time to tweak, time to adjust? Because as part of leadership, of course, we all know a lot of times we spotlight the highlight reel, but some of the biggest advancements are lessons that we had to take a step back, reevaluate, and then move forward.
Yeah, and realistically, so lessons we don't even know we're going to deal with yet, too, right? Same, you learn from history so that you can be prepared for the future. But I got to give a big shout out to our entire NEXA family, because they're a big piece of this. We meet as an entire company every single week and we have an open forum, right? Everybody gets a chance to talk and voice their problems and their opinions, and those get colorful at times, those meetings, because it's an open, and everybody knows that they have the right to say whatever they feel like, as long as we don't start disrespecting each other. But they can be upset, they can be mad. We can have a heated argument there, and we do it in front of the entire company because we're that transparent. But some of the biggest lessons that we learned, and you mentioned when we decided that it's time to only employ producing loan officers, we had about 200, when we were at 750, we had about 200 to 250 non-producers.
Wow.
We were just collecting licenses at one point. So it was a cute number, but it didn't mean as much, right? So we made some changes, and part of the changes came, by the way, from learning lessons.
Yep.
From such a fast-growing organization. I mean, back in the second quarter, our payroll teams could not keep up. It was insane. But the biggest burden on the payroll teams was the loan officer who only closed one loan every 5 months. It took ridiculous amounts of time to support and service that one loan. And then we says, you know what, we're going to start enforcing our production policies, and we gave people chances, and we introduced a mentoring program and a coaching program with Christine Beckwith. And it says, if you don't have the volume, right, or if you're, and then we had this policy of no brand new loan officers, but we said, look, we'll let brand new loan officers come, and we'll let non-producing loan officers come, and we'll let a non-producing loan officer stay only if you commit to our internal program, and you commit to coaching with Christine and her team, right? And since that time, and so then anybody we've added since, now we of course always looking for that good top producer to come onto the company, but all the people that were non-producers or all the people that were newer, we're letting them come in, and it's been really fun the last 6 months, especially in the last 3 months, to see the growth of some of these folks. And Christine is normally, right, hitting up these really top producers, and so she's going through a little bit of learning love with us, because now we're kind of forcing people into it with low producers, and that's not necessarily what but man, what a between her and our internal mentoring team that we now have. I mean, there's loan officers that are 90 days licensed, and they're starting to outproduce. Wow. And they're outproducing some pretty good producers, right? So it's exciting. So it was really a push in July by Matt to stop that. You know me, right? I was like, we're going for 1,000. We're going, right? And so Matt and I had to have some, colorful conversations, and I finally kind of subsided. Okay, that's fine. We'll make this change. But you know what? He made me make some changes, and it's part of a great partnership with him and I. He made me get out of my comfort zone a little bit and force only producers to come here, or force those committed to production to be able to be part of this. And you know what? We've always had a great culture, but the culture, it started to diminish there a little bit with a lot of non-producers.
Sure.
But now the culture is just, when you only have producers, people who are producing loans, the culture just gets so much better. And it's been a lot funner since that time. And on top of it, right? It was a lot of fun before the second quarter, but we had a massive, it wasn't very much fun in the second quarter, but it got a lot better. And so those learning lessons, take those, with you into the future, so that you can handle the one that's going to happen next week that you don't even know about yet.
Absolutely.
Well, something very important that you brought up there for our listeners to understand is it doesn't matter if you're brand new or if you're a 20-year vet. Everyone needs a coach. Like they say, everyone needs guidance. Everyone, you don't know everything. Even if you think you do,
Yep.
There's always someone like Christine or someone, one of your inside mentors that can be like, hey, have you tried this? And then the light goes off and you're like, oh no, I haven't. And then, that's the one thing that can push you over the top.
Come on. Tiger Woods is a golf swing coach, right? I'm like, and you would think he's like one of the best at what he does, but everybody's got a coach. I have a coach. It's silly to not have a coach. So there's just the little tweaks that somebody's there to remind you, you used to do that, but you're not, now you're doing it this way. Why don't you get back to what, right? It's those reminders, that outside looking in theory. And I got to give my wife a lot of credit, because she's probably my biggest coach, but she reminds me all the time of things that I used to do better. So.
Absolutely. Right. That's a very valuable point. So let's speak about those mentors. So the mentors are other loan officers that actually work at NEXA?
Yep. They're loan officers that it's a fine balance, right? Because you want a mentor that's got a good
Right.
experience, that's got some production behind them, but they also have to put the commitment to this mentoring program, right? And really, what we have there is some of our biggest, our full-hearted people there, people
Okay.
with really with a helping heart, and yeah, they're loan officers, but they love teaching, right? And there's a different mentality in a teacher. I bless their heart. I couldn't do it on a daily basis, right? I couldn't go and teach seventh grade math or whatever. I couldn't do it. But there's those folks with those hearts that love that love to do that, and so that's what we had to find, and we find them within NEXA is what we
Awesome.
find them. So
Awesome.
And that's a voluntary thing. I mean, you're just asking people, hey, would you want to be a mentor for some of our younger people, some of our new people? It's
there's
not like, hey,
compensation to it. There's compensation to it. Don't get me wrong.
right,
Right. Mentors, loan officers, we're all salespeople. We're all, at the end of the day, their family's bottom line, what supports them is going to be important, and it has to be addressed. But there is compensation to it, but they do have to say, I want to do this. We're not going to say you are. If I have to talk them into it, it's not a good fit. Right. It's just like, hey, this is what we're looking for. And whenever we put out an open position for it, there's usually a lot of requests to it. So because it's become, in the last few months, it's become a really big part of NEXA in our growth as well.
well, that comes back to the servant heart. People that want to help others, and there's a lot of those in this industry. I believe it's that's one thing I love about this industry is it's not nearly as cutthroat as a lot of industries you see, and especially in sales.
I think it's gotten better over the last couple of years. From someone that has been doing this a very long time, it seemed a lot more cutthroat years ago. But I think in recent few years, it has gotten much more collaborative.
Or I'll double and triple check that and agree with that comment. And you got to give a big shout out, I feel, to the broker community.
I agree.
Because they are helping each other, right?
Yes.
They've come to this nurturing environment. I got to tell you, when I was in retail, and I have to believe it's still an extremely cutthroat environment, right? I didn't care if you worked for the same company or company up the road. If you and I are competing on a loan, this is a dogfight, and I'm going for the jug. It's just the way it was. And retail doesn't talk to other retail people, not even at the same company a lot, but let alone separate companies. But brokers have this really awesome sense of community and a responsibility to help each other. So,
Yes.
And that's been, to me, a really breath of fresh air.
It was a game changer. I mean, all of that changed when the broker community united to come together to help each other. It showed the entire industry collectively, regardless of where you were, that it can be done and it's the right way for it to be done. So I agree with you 100%. That's right. So I do have to go back to one of the things that you mentioned, where when you started NEXA, you wanted to focus on the originator and you wanted to make it about them. And therefore, operations has to go along with how it's done on the originator side. Can you expand on that? Because I'm actually curious how you've done that and how that works.
Yeah, so that was, and sometimes it's an ongoing thing, right? We can start out with our payroll teams, right?
Mm-hmm.
We had, and we went away from, but we're going right back to it, a policy of an every single day payroll.
I remember that.
Right. So, it was a mistake for us to go away from it, but we are now going back to it. And just as a payroll, right? But it's difficult on payroll teams to say, okay, I got to do this every single day. Now you have expectations of loan officers that every single day I got to do. But look, there's ways to do this that are it actually, when you get into it, you realize that it actually starts to make it easier on the payroll teams in all actuality, because you can turn payroll into nothing. And Laura, you'll understand this, turn times.
Yeah.
On an underwriting turn time. So now we say, listen, right now we're at about 18 hours in payroll, right? But sometimes, like on Tuesdays, we'll turn into 48 hours in payroll or something, right? Or in the end of the month, and maybe we turn into 72 hours in payroll. We haven't done that yet, but that's our, you turn it into payroll turn times, but at least, and then you publicize those so that everybody knows, and at least there's an understanding and an expectation that, hey, I don't have to worry about it. They're going to process. I turned my payroll in. I got 24 hours on processing, and it'll be in my bank account by, the next morning, right? So They know that they can have, if they fund a loan today, they can have the money in their bank account by Friday.
Wow.
And so everyday payroll is one of those things. But you got to address processing, right? Because I don't care what your compensation plan is, what your interest rates are, what kind of products you have access to. You can have all the bells and whistles you want, but if you can't get a loan done and processed, right, where the loan officer doesn't have to sit there and do all the processing, who cares? They're going to go somewhere else. Loan officers follow their processors just as much as they follow a company. And so we had to address that. And that's been difficult.
Oh, yeah.
In the broker environment, just because there's not that many. When you look at these processing organizations, third contract, and the problem with the brokers is that, well, if you do it in-house, it costs you more because you can't go over a certain margin no matter what you do. So it's a problem in the broker sector. But then you go to the outside third-party processor, so that doesn't cost you more. Well, the problem with that is that they do business their way. Right. So we really worked hand in hand with a very particular company that we have some really serious service level commitments that if they're touching the NEXA files, they have to do it our way. Oh, and wow. I'll cut one of those processors. I said that, you know what, you can employ that processor all you want. They're your employee, but they're not going to touch another NEXA file if that's how they're going to do it. So guaranteed levels of commitment. Processing was a big part of every loan officer's life. I couldn't stand the way processing was handled at most of the organizations I was. I mean, then this arranged marriage processing thing was just probably even worse. But we make sure the loan officer is truly in charge of that. And there's a processing platforms where they have to do it the LO's way, right? And sometimes, right, one LO at NEXA is going to do it differently than another one. So there has to be a little bit of flexibility there as well. So there's certain things that we force these companies to agree to if they want access to our loan officers. And then there's just not that many contract processing companies out there that can handle the size of NEXA, because most contract processing companies are 2 states, 1 state, 4 states, just like the average broker, but we're in 47 states plus DC, right? So we need some coverage. That was a big piece of it, getting those service levels. And
that is such a great point, Mike, because I mean, think about the volume that you're doing, being able to, we all know what happened in 2020. There just wasn't enough operational support staff across the country to be able to handle the volume for our industry. So right there, that's another challenge that you had to figure out, okay, how do I do this? How do I make my promise to my loan officers? How do I jump on these weekly calls? And the biggest complaint is, well, you promised us that you were going to put us first, and now we've got these operational deficiencies. So your solution was to create these SLAs with these contract processing teams and explain to them that, yes, you understand whatever, shortage they may have at this time. If you're going to contract process for NEXA, it has to meet this, correct?
Yeah, and really, it's one particular company. I'm not going to name them, because the reality is that even if another broker contacted them, they probably can't take their business,
right? Because
they're dealing with our growth.
That's
so we work hand in hand with them to verify, to help them continue their growth too, because we've gone through these things. And look, they're doing great. They're processing, I think, over 870 a month for us is their average. And they're only getting a portion of our business because our loan officers still have the choice, right? The important piece is that, hey, we have this guaranteed service level for you, but the option is still yours as the loan officer. And so some of them will choose to work with localized regional processing firms, and we will absolutely set up with them. But it's really that one particular company that really said, okay, we're gonna jump on the coattails and build out. And they do a lot of, they do have their own Zoom platform just like we do, just to make sure they can service our loan officers the way that our loan officers are used to being serviced now. So that was an example of building it purely around the loan officer, a processing group that will do it their way. And you got to go and look at the Weemlo and Model Mortgage marriage there, right? When Weemlo was a national processing company, really good one, got bought out, and frankly, to likely service that Model Mortgage thing, which I looked at it, I'm like, okay, you guys you're matching me on one, right? Because that was one of our non-negotiables for our loan officers, is that we had to set up, and we've been doing it for a long time already. But I thought it was a brilliant move on their part, to absorb that a national processing company like that, to guarantee that your firm is going to get the process, where we've already got that, right? We set that up a long time ago, because we saw, when we first entered the broker channel in 17, we saw quickly that, hold up, processing is a problem here.
It is.
So that was another problem that we had to address in order to be able to grow to the levels that we inspired to grow to.
Absolutely.
Let's talking about relationships. What really intrigues me about how you guys are set up at NEXA is the relationships that you have with vendors, and, whose job is it to go out? Do you do that? Do you go out and find, your credit repairs, your insurance people, your AFRs? I mean, who does that?
My partners do it. I got 840 some odd partners right now, right? And the loan officers, what they do, and they come to our town hall meetings that we do every single week, and they say, listen, I got this great vendor. And so what we'll do is we'll say, okay. So then Dan Fouts, he actually runs an LO support team for us. And LO support, Laura, you'll get this real well, right? This is like a super AE. Because one thing that we learned was that when we entered the broker arena, and we made a mistake on I won't name lenders. We sent all over, when we entered brokering, we didn't know who was the best lenders to send to, right? For what products. We sent like all of our loans to one lender. And it's nobody on, it's certainly not AFR. You guys have been awesome. But it was a disaster. And we didn't know any better that who was the player in what given product or what given bucket range for FICO ranges, who could do this the best, right? And under what scenarios. So we created an internal loan officer support team, which is not to be mistaken by our mentor team. They only handle, get people up to production standards, but our loan officer support team sits in there also in their own breakout rooms. And a loan officer can come in and say, okay, this is my scenario. Where can I take it to? Who's got the best rates for this right now? And then where's this button at, by the way? I don't care what the question is. You got to be able to help those people at any given moment. That was one of our things early on, is that those questions all came to Matt and myself. And we knew that we had to grow that support level for them to do it. But the vendors and the lenders, right? Laura, I can't appreciate your team enough for giving us a rep that's in there all day long for us to talk to and help, and just to be in there, right? We have 12 different lenders inside of our live video support center all day long.
Wow, that's awesome.
We have, but the loan officers are who bring them.
I think you're signed up. I mean, I was actually speaking to one of your loan officers. It's over 100 different choices, right? Isn't it, Mike?
Yeah, and I wish it wasn't, but the loan officers say, hey, I need this lender, right?
I got this unique program.
And I'm like, okay, here you go. Well, we look at it, and we'll look and say, well, are you sure you can't do it over here instead? Right. And look, our loan officers are partners to us. And if our partner says, they're business partners to us. And my business partner said, we need this. And who am I to say no? But I would prefer it to be limited. Don't get me wrong.
No, but look what you did. You didn't just say, oh, we're willing to sign up with this number of companies. You provided them with the support that is able to say, okay, you've got this FICO score, you've got this criteria, here's your top 3, lenders for this particular scenario. And then guiding them of, okay, here's where you go for this is where you can find their information, this is their system. So you didn't just sign up a bunch of vendors and lenders out there. You also provided them with the support to be able to guide them through that. So I think that's extremely valuable. Extremely valuable. And Mike, I was also wondering, are you still doing the Y NEXA calls?
Every single Thursday, like clockwork.
And tell us about that.
So, I mean, I've been doing this for 2.5 years, right? These Y NEXA calls, and we're obviously growing, and a lot of people want to get on the phone with me, but I just can't take every single phone call. So we created these Y NEXA calls every single Thursday that we do these, and like clock, right? I'm on there. I've been COVID positive. It didn't matter what the case may be because it's on here anyway, right? So, sick, not sick, whatever the case may be. I mean, Thanksgiving, Christmas Eve, we did them this year. It doesn't matter what the day is. We're doing that Y NEXA call to let all loan officers, we like to go out to the retail folks, don't get me wrong. just because we think it's a good transition to the broker community. We don't want to be recruiting from other brokers. It's a negative thing. We do get them in there, don't get me wrong, but every single week, and I mean, last week I had 135 people in that call, and it went down towards the end of the last year. It was down into the 80s, but now it's creeping back up. And I think the most we had on there was this last like 160 participants on that call, where loan officers around the country log in and listen to that. And it often goes between 2 and 3 hours, just
My
because
goodness.
there's no question I will not answer. There's not a single question I won't answer, as if they were already with the organization. Just that true, real clear transparency, right, to somebody coming on, because it's just important. If you're going to recruit somebody, they got to feel comfortable that they're going to have everything that they need to make this change, to change their family's income potential. They got to feel comfortable, right? So I make sure that I'm doing those. Every now and again, I can't do them. I think when we did that, when you were the moderator, there was literally one going on that day, and I couldn't do that one, right, because I was on stage with you. But
so do you look for a certain person type, experience, whatever? I know you'll take newbies and you'll partner them and put them in coaching and stuff, but is it pretty much as long as they want to join NEXA, you're opening up the opportunity, or what do you look for?
So we do go over in our Why NEXA, we talk about who's a good fit for NEXA.
Okay.
Right? First and foremost, if somebody's just, it goes off half-cocked and likes to yell and scream at people constantly, right? That's not a good fit for us. There's got to be a character fit there, right? Because we're not going to mess up our culture, right? I had a top producing loan officer not too long ago, a really good producing loan officer that thought they could treat people within our team badly. And I said, no, that's not going to work here. So that person can't be at NEXA if that happens. Right. And don't get me wrong, emotions run high on loans. We're talking about somebody who just completely goes up and just starts cussing at people and and then, maybe but those, we tell them, look, if that's you, do yourself and me a favor.
Yep.
Don't grow. If you're known to blow up on people and underwriters, and even underwriters, right? We won't let our loan officers destroy and scream and yell at underwriters. If somebody's going to come in and have to do something, they got to get me involved, right? Let me come in and look, I'm going to be stern. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to do it in a way that's not going to say, yeah, it's not going to be like, gosh, I don't ever want to talk to Mike again. Right. I hope at least, right. It's stern. We're getting our point across, but so that's a big key factor. But production is another one. If they're not committed to getting to 2 loans a month, I tell them, don't bother. And I get people every week on my WineX says, well, I had somebody on there last week saying, well, I'm actually a lab tech scientist, a lab scientist or something. And I'm like, full time. And I'm like, it was 2 hours in. I said, I'm sorry to wasted your time, but you are not a fit for NEXA. We only hire full-time loan officers now. We used to do the part-time thing, but we'd only hire. So if you're a brand new loan officer and you're saying you're full-time, you're holding another job, we're not a good fit. I'm a big fan. You got to burn the boats, man. This isn't going to work. But 9 out of 10 loan officers don't work out is the reality. Long term, if you look at how many loan officers get licensed and how many of them don't work out, or not producers, right? Yeah, they just eventually don't work out. And I'm like, it's just not worth it. You've got to do this full time. You got to burn the boats. My first 6 months in this industry back in the 90s was painful, but I burned the boats.
And you still remember it, right? You still remember it, and you remember being hungry, and it just gave you more of a burn in your belly. So.
Yes, it does. Yep.
Yeah, you got to put it all out there. So let's go back to your first thing, and that's leading by example. So I've known you for a while now, and I know you're one of those 4 a.m., get up, get things done kind of guys. So talk about leading by example a little bit more, and what that means, from your team's perspective, from people watching you as their leader.
Yeah, well, the 4 a.m. thing actually is not early enough when Arizona switches back to Pacific Standard Time, because then I got that's 7 o'clock, my East Coast folks, and they're already reaching out. So I probably got to do that a little bit earlier. But look, this extreme hardcore work ethic, right? Nothing is going to stop me, right? When I set a goal, it is done. It is not possible. It's going to happen. But that comes with daily work ethic. To set a goal that's, like we're going to hit 1,500 loan officers, producing loan officers by the end of 2021. We will, right? But now to make that a reality, right? There's got to be daily things involved. You cannot ever lay your head down and go, did I not do everything it takes? And I got to give credit to my wife, because without a supporting cast at home, it's not possible, right? It's just simply not possible. And but the work ethic, this lack of, this fear of dialing that loan officers have, right? It's just shut up and dial the phone. I'm not asking you to dig a ditch. I'm asking you to push a button. It's not even a button anymore. It's a flat screen on your phone now. So it's even less effort than it used to be. But so just, it's not hard. If somebody doesn't like you, hang up the phone and make the next call. It's mental, but it's not a physical act. Just do it, and do it 300-400 times today. Right. So I'll get on the phone with loan officers and I'll grind it, because I'll compete with them. I'll say, let's see who can get more sales in the next 2 hours. Right. And we'll just go at it, and I'll say who can get more calls, who had more talk time. And it's just that leading by example, that grind that gets out there. And if you're not getting up early in the morning, how do you, who gives me the right to ask somebody else to, or expect it? Right. Because our loan officers know that I'm aggressive in this format. Right. I'm fair and I'll listen, but they also know that don't give me an excuse. Don't make your problems my problems. I don't make mine yours. Right. That's one thing that a lot of our people will hear. I'll get this, oh, well, I haven't produced because I had to help my sister with COVID, and then I had this happen. I'm like, don't tell me about let me tell you, if I was going to get involved with my problems with you, are you kidding me? I could get into them. Right. But
Right.
could you imagine if my problems interfered with your payroll? but your problem's going to interfere with our production, right? So it's like, I'm a no excuse guy. Look, you can give me an excuse you want, but it's still an excuse.
Well, I'll tell you, you have one loan officer, one broker under you at NEXA that I don't think is human, and that's Jason DuPont. Because I don't know, that guy is definitely not human.
Let me tell you something though. So Jason DuPont, I see him, right? And I only had the opportunity to meet him this year. I got to tell you, man, and he's in my local market. So it's really one of these things that I look back when I was a top producing loan officer, and I see Jason and I are incredibly, oddly similar, right? Like brother, we never knew each other, but we don't look alike, but we might've been twins. But it's weird, because if we were competing in the market at the same time as the loan officers that we are, or that I was when I was competing, oh, it would have been a dogfight. I think him and I would have disliked each other. I am so thrilled that he's actually on my side on this one, because he's crazy. But we have so many similarities. He's a avid biker. I'm an avid biker, right? He has this term on his Facebook page, indefatigable, right? The inability to be fatigued. My daughter gave me that name like 7 years ago. She's like, wow. You are indefatigable. Nothing can stop, right? And so I love the world of him. And
well, when I see him on Facebook, he's like, hey, put in another 18-hour day. I'm like, geez, man, like leaving the office, it's 18 hours in, and then next thing I know, he's like, just finished a 48-mile bike ride. I'm like, what? Mm-hmm. Like, where does he get the energy, and when does he sleep?
Well, there's a secret to working that long of hours and then sleeping, right? Because I used to be up in my heavy producing loan officer days, 3 a.m. wake up in a 10 p.m. return home was absolutely on a daily basis. You sleep, usually your body will crash, and that's usually going to be like a Saturday morning. You got to give your body a moment when it just says, I can't do it no more. But there's also these wonderful chairs now, office chairs that they kick back, and you can take a 5-10 minute cat nap and get that out of the way. So I was adamant after my early morning calls, 8:01, my calls were being made. I don't care what happened. I don't care. The CEO came down the hallway. I don't care. Don't you dare interrupt me at my 8:01 calls, right? That's my prospecting. Nothing interrupts but by the time I was done with my prospecting, and then I got through then I always, okay, well, I got about 10 minutes. I'd hit the lights in the office, take a quick cat nap, all you needed, and you're back on your day. And then people are like, do you ever sleep? Yeah, I sleep. I sleep, 6 to 7 hours a night, but I just do it in 10-minute increments here and there.
So when people see you and Jason, is there people within the organization that becomes a competition to, that they want to put on that 18-hour days because they see you guys doing it?
Oh yeah. I mean, we just introduced Club NEXA, where our top producers we're gonna fly our top guys out, and we're they see all the numbers now, and then we have an internal Facebook page just for loan officers only. and they get in there and collaborate, and you can see the, hey man, you're killing, give me some ideas, and then they're saying, I'm going to do this now, and that camaraderie, that support, that culture that we have really pushes out onto the other folks. And that's why I'm kind of excited about the mentoring teams, the newer loan officers, because there's some guys in there with some ridiculous work ethic that I am really glad that we eased up on our no newbies policy. And so, these are the guys that are going to really drive the business in 5-6 years from now. So, but it's leaders like Jason that help that. So.
Yeah, so important to just keep filling that with new blood, because, as we're working on our existing people, we always have to be looking forward. Wow. So Mike, you've energized us. You've given us so much to think about, and we can certainly see how NEXA got to the level that it's at. So how can people learn more about NEXA? How can they connect to you and all of that?
Honestly, if it's a loan officer, then they just go to nexamortgage.com. The upper right corner of our website, you'll see a live video support button. In there's live links. The first 2 links are corporate support and RLO support. Click on the button. We're in there all day long. But at the bottom of that page, you'll see the Why NEXA call every Thursday. And if you want to really learn about NEXA, all about what we're about, that would be where to do it. And it's me presenting it. It's a live demo. There's no question I will not answer.
Literally everything.
Literally. I mean, we've been asked, what our bank account is. We've been, what's reserves. All right, let's talk about it, right? I've been asked about, family, personal things and stuff like, there's not a question that I will not answer in there. So.
Love it. Transparency.
100%.
All right. Well, thank you so much. This has been fabulous, and we wish you all the best always.
You guys rock. Thank you guys both. Appreciate being here.
Thanks a lot, Mike.